In business, there's an F word that many people talk about, but not as many people understand. That F word, my friends, is franchising. Franchising is a world that many people have heard about, but it's kind of one of those taboo things. And it shouldn't be. There's a whole lot of opportunity in this space, and especially when it comes to, my favorite topic, data, automations, and artificial intelligence. So my guest today, Lance Graulich, is going to unveil the secrets behind the franchising world. We're going to dive deep into a very cool business assessment tool that he uses, and I personally took as well. And I can't wait to share this conversation with all of you. So maybe the business F word won't be so taboo for you anymore. Everyone, welcome back to another episode of Humanize Automation. And this one I'm really geeked out about. I geek out about a lot of my guests. You all know that, and I say that a lot. But what's really interesting to me is you guys know this, I love systems, I love efficiency, I love things that can analyze and give me data and give me a better understanding of myself or a problem at hand. And Lance Graulich today, he does a whole lot of things, and we're going to get into it. But one of the cool things that he has is this incredible assessment that really helps you understand your business leadership styles, tendencies, cultural perspectives, and everything else. And so we're going to get into that and so much more today. So Lance, welcome to the show.
Dr. Jill, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here on Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, so recording this on Cinco de Mayo, everybody, and no, we have not had any Coronas or margaritas yet, but we will after this show. So, Lance, your background is really fascinating, and there's not many people you meet that when you get like a one-page introduction of them, they come off as, I am an expert in franchising. Like, what first, because you have so many areas of expertise, but you have really focused in on this franchising area. What is your lens? What brought you to that?
Yeah. And really my only expertise these days I'm proud of is franchising. I did a lot of things in order to get to the world of franchising. Started on Wall Street in New York, got my economics degree, thought I was going to work for Dad's company. I was fortunate enough to be groomed for that my whole life. And realized that was kind of boring, believe it or not. Didn't want to sit on a trading desk my whole life. I needed people interaction. I had a crazy tech uncle before anybody knew what tech really even was. And the truth is, his company took analog phones and made them digital. The first company that ever did that in I think it was late 70s, early 80s. He called me in 89 and said, I want to build $1 billion company. And I said, I'm sorry, what? And he said, I want to build $1 billion company, 1989 $1 billion company. Okay. And I joined him. And what it was franchise restaurants. And we got to about 210 million about 6 years later, a lot of acquisitions, a lot of new store development. And I absolutely got bitten, if you will, by the franchising bug. To your point, it is elusive for so many people to get into business ownership. Number one, you have to have your own idea. Or you're going to buy an existing business, which is a whole other animal, or you jump into a franchise where you don't need any experience, but I always say your skills are transferable depending on what you've done in your past or your previous life. And there's a lot of success to be had in the franchise space, sort of plug and play for the right individuals. So for me, I've owned franchises like Wingstop and Krispy Kreme donuts in different states, all the bad food that makes you fat and, gives you diabetes. And then I created a brand from scratch that's now a big deal in Las Vegas called Pink Box Donuts. And that was just because somebody called me and said, you create stuff. Can you create us a brand? And I said, what do you got in mind? And he said, gourmet donuts, like a voodoo donuts type thing out of Portland. And I said, absolutely. And we did that, very successful, still thriving today. And here we are. So I fell, pardon me, I fell into being a franchise broker years ago. I'm not going to retire. And by the way, my claim to fame is I tell people, put yourself in a financial position to retire and don't. There's magic in building a community, having a purpose. Once you've built your financial retirement package, if you will. But, people die early from what I've seen. If you've ever watched I think it was the Blue Zone show on Netflix about Centaurians, people that live to be 100, there's this community feel that you need. Even if a spouse should pass away, the community swoops them up and supports them, and they still dance together and eat together and have a purpose together. So I kind of feel like that is my purpose, and I want to be able to help people easily get into business ownership where most people are in this fog or in this haze. How do I get out of this awful job where I have no time for my family? I've maxed out everything I can on salary. I'm not even going to get a bonus this year. I might even get laid off next year. How do I control my own destiny, my own time freedom and financial freedom? And really, it's franchise fit. You fit with many different franchises you don't even know. And one of my favorite stories is a friend that was bald and didn't know how to cut hair and ended up with 19 franchise hair salons. Now, his initial reaction, Jill, you can imagine, was like, wait, what are you telling me I should be doing? And why? This is stupid. Well, that's the initial reaction that most people are going to have with the businesses that could fit them. And then as it sunk in, he realized, wait, this is genius. I can't get stuck in the business because I can't perform the duties. I need to bring technicians in that know how to cut hair. And if you ever read the book, The E-Myth, one of the best entrepreneurship books ever, Michael Gerber, it talks about that. You don't need, if you were a technician, it's kind of the kiss of death sometimes, because the technician isn't what builds and scales a business. It's the manager, it's the leader, it's that visionary, that entrepreneur. And that's what franchising gives you.
Well, and it's really interesting that you bring up the point to me that you shouldn't necessarily franchise a business that you know how to do, right? Case in point, your bald friend with hair. Because a lot of people
with no
in
hair.
entrepreneurship, right? A lot of people in entrepreneurship, and everybody, this is me included, pot calling kettle black here. When I first started my first business, was, oh well, I can do everything, so I should do everything to try to save money and figure things out. And what I was left with was a sense of exhaustion, a sense of something that was fine, but not great, and definitely not something that was scalable or sellable. And so many people get into business. One of my best friends is a business broker, and people are in the business and they're like, oh, can I sell my business? And they come to him with like no data, no analytics, no expectation or explanation of their culture or anything. And he's great. He's like, here's a few things you need to do and come back in a few years when you have all this history together. But what's so important too is it's not about the control over the small things in the business. It's trusting people to do those things. But from your standpoint, Lance, it's helping people pick a franchise. This is an already existing infrastructure, everybody, that fits with your capabilities, your own leadership style, your view on the world, how you run a business, what types of cultures you thrive in. Because when you're a franchise owner, yes, you are in charge of your bubble, but there is still an infrastructure above you that all has to blend together. And that it's kind of like a B2B sales relationship in a way.
Yes. Yeah. And one great example of that just happened recently, a gentleman that I placed that was a mortgage broker called me a couple of years ago and said, it was probably 18 months ago to be exact, I'm in the mortgage business. I'm in California. I'm not doing well. Interest rates are still higher than they need to be. Obviously, they need to come down dramatically. Home prices are high. What is the best recession-proof franchise I can get into now? Focus my attention for a couple of years and then put a team in place and let them run it and continue to expand both businesses. And he got into an air conditioning franchise knowing nothing about it. He did 2.6 million in year one. 2.6 million. Now, the flip side of that, a gentleman and I knew, the son calls me and says, hey, can you talk to my dad? He didn't want to do a franchise. He didn't want to pay the franchise fee, which is really a mastermind fee. Anybody that's ever been to a mastermind, Tony Robbins, has a new one? It's $250,000 I just heard about recently to join. There's value for some people, depending on what level, to get to the next rung of the ladder. So the son calls me and says, you have to talk to my dad. 8 years he's been in his own air conditioning brand because he did not want to do a franchise. And we get on a Zoom call, and dad proudly tells me that he did 850,000 last year in revenue. I said, wow, that's pretty good. How long have you been doing it? He proudly says, well, 8 years. 8 years. When my friend did 2.6 million following a system. Now, my friend might also be better at sales because that's where your skills come in. This is not everybody's going to do 2.6 million in year one. You might only do 1 million. But I told him, I said, if you would have joined my favorite air conditioning franchise, you probably would have done 850 in year one. Franchises accelerate your growth. They save you a ton of time.
They do. And it's, you said things about fit and everything, and it's not depending on what you want to get into, right? If you are having something that is around your own unique IP, your unique intellectual property, you're doing something that is highly, as a consultant, for example, you choose a path. Now, there are massive consulting groups and management consulting groups you could be a part of. And are you going to make as much with them as you would independently on your own, assuming you work the same amount of hours? No, because you're going to retain more. But how long is it going to take you to build up that clientele? And that is a personal choice, of course, for everyone. But when you're looking at really understanding, and Lance, I want to get directly to this assessment because y'all listening know me, data is sexy, and I want to go into this a little more because you've already mentioned like the culture of it's important. You come in, you have existing systems and processes in place, but it's important that those systems and processes are a good match to kind of how you operate and the culture that you can operate in. So one of the tools that you use in your line of work is this assessment that gives you that insight about a potential franchisee. And I've taken this, but I'm interested first to hear kind of you, Lance, describe what this is and how you use this tool, because it's definitely a way to automate these conversations at the onset so you can serve people better.
Exactly. And knowing I was coming on your podcast, this is a great bit of automation to get people's brain going as to really it's about your mindset, your skill set, and your life experiences. And then when you fill in the information, it's what kind of investment are you making? What are you currently doing now? How did you find me? So there's big pieces of the conversation starter, if you will. But this assessment is really step one. And then I follow up with the interview. And the interview process is asking some deeper questions. But I even get down to, what did you want to be when you were coming out of high school? Oh, you went to college. Okay. And you became a PhD or a doctor, whatever it might be. You got your master's. Or not, in franchising, I have franchises where you're going to laugh. I have a residential cleaning brand. More than 60% of the franchise owners actually have a master's degree or some other advanced degree. But in most brands, you barely need a high school diploma. You just have to have some skills that can work within the franchise. So back to the assessment. The assessment really is a guide. It's a foundational piece that really helps me understand who I'm speaking with. And the funniest thing, Jill, is things like comfort zone. If your comfort zone was really small, that means that you're ready. You are so ready to do something. I had a guy recently, his comfort zone was really large, which immediately told me we hadn't spoken yet. And immediately told me, oof, it's going to be hard to get this guy off the couch looking at this. And, me, challenge accepted. I have no problem having conversations with people because it might mean that they're going to take 6 months to get some serious movement or traction, or a year or even more. I got a lady that was a lawyer, a recovering lawyer, as she called herself. She didn't know what she wanted to do. And it took her 3 years to decide. But we worked together, maybe monthly. It wasn't weekly at that stage. So the assessment is a great tool with insights into you. Now, anybody can trick an assessment. So I have had people that have taken it at different stages. I had a lady recently who's like, all right, I've been working with you for 3 months now. I'm going to take the assessment again, and I bet it'll change a little bit. And now that she was more comfortable with the franchise process, sure enough, the way she answered questions, her comfort zone was no longer large. It was more medium-ish. And really, I didn't need that assessment at that stage to know she's ready. She's ready to make a move.
I got the results for me, right? And I'm looking through this and from an analytical mindset. And this, anyone listening who has a lot of like systemic conversations with someone like Lance, the conversations you have are going to be unique and varied, but they're a part of your system. They're a part of your process in how you're evaluating information, finding the right fit, doing what you do. And so many people in business, I hear them say, and guilty here, I did this initially, is like, oh, but what I do is unique. I'm like, BS. What you do is 80% replicatable by someone else. And now we're quickly learning, generative AI can replicate a good 50% of that 80%. So, what we have is not necessarily all that unique until it gets to the point where we really put our humanness in it.
Yeah.
To be able to say, okay, Jill, you got the score of an emulator. And okay, that makes sense on this thing, but I actually think you have a hybrid with this other type. So here are multiple opportunities to tie it together. And that's where human intuition comes into play. But these automations that you have in an assessment, so anyone in consulting, in consultative selling, I would argue, any of these areas could benefit by thinking about how could an assessment actually serve your needs to not only mentally prep your potential customer for the conversation before they come to you, but to give you usable data that you can implement not only in the conversation, but in different automations and your customer's experience.
Yep. Yeah. And I love what you just threw out there, because in what I do, there are so many variables, especially when it's a husband and wife wanting to do something. I just had a couple of calls yesterday on a Sunday with different couples. Sometimes it's just a guy, sometimes it's a lady, it depends. And sometimes it's a couple. And there are so many variables because initially, okay, how many of us have ever watched The Bachelor or The Bachelorette? Fun TV, right? But the number one thing that you hear repeatedly there that's similar to what I do, funny enough, is the vulnerability. You hear the word, you have to be vulnerable. You have to break down your walls. You're not telling me everything. Some of my first calls with people, I take the assessment, then I have all these questions I'll ask depending on what the assessment says, and I'll customize it, obviously. And AI really can't do that now. AI is great for ideation, and we'll talk more on that. But I really get in deep with, well, what do you really want to do? Oh, you really like working with pets. That's like your number one thing, or seniors or kids, or like I helped a lady just get into an electrical franchise of all things. I brought that up and it wasn't outlandish to her. She thought she wanted to work in senior home care. But the more vulnerable people get, sometimes questions like, well, Dr. Jill, what did you want to do when you were coming out of high school? Oh my gosh, Lance, I really wanted to be a lawyer, but well, I have some interesting things that with those skills, you might be shocked to know there's maybe a cluster of former lawyers that are in that brand that have nothing to do with the law, but it has to do with that analytical thinking that flexes that muscle and satisfies that craving, if you will, to do something. We all want a challenge, I think. At least I do.
Most of us.
I'm very competitive. I like a challenge, and people that are very competitive that get into franchising want to also build really big businesses. But here's the reality. When people are Googling things like, I want a great business, I want a great first business, is a franchise right for me? There's not, as we all know, what do people really focus on in the return of that search? The top 10, right? Hardly anybody scrolls past the top 10. Maybe they'll do a new search, come up with a couple of new things. But I have franchise brands that have been around since the 60s that are incredible, that nobody listening has ever heard of. I have a brand that did $750 million in revenue last year, and the average franchisee does $7.8 million in revenue on a $325,000 investment. And all they care about is that this prospect that I'm bringing them, which I have a friend that's going to an in-person discovery day as the final stage to meet the brand, meet the team day, they call it sometimes as well, to make sure that it's right for everybody, the final stage. But you would never find that brand through a Google search because nobody is saying, I want to do facility solutions management, B2B, and I have sales skill. No, nobody's ever doing that.
Really? I mean, now people are though, Lance. Now people are. You let the cat out of the bag.
No, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. But you know what, Jill? The best part about what I do that I'm proud to say, I'm free. I am a free advocate in the world of franchising. It's the weirdest and best thing. I work for you for free. I get paid by the brands. So if you go to any of my brands, guess what? You're going to pay the exact same franchise fee when you start with them as you will using me as your advocate and allowing me to do the introduction. And I'll get paid a success fee or commission for introducing you. It's crazy that people are like, what do you mean? I don't have to pay you? Nope.
No, it's like you think of it as your initial therapy appointment, everybody, go and see what you really are. I mean, I only half joke because anytime you're getting into something serious, right, for yourself in your life that is going to be life altering, positive or negative, it's the true, as you said, vulnerability that will get you to the best solution fastest. But that also causes one person to truly self-reflect, which is what a lot of people aren't willing to do in business life, in their personal life, in relationships, etc. And, you cracked the egg on AI. And I think this is a good time to bring it up because you said, you're great at using it for our ideation. And I think for a lot of people, there are so many different things. I had another guest call it's sparring partner. And I'm like, oh, I like sparring partner. That's a really good phrase. I'm going to use that. But I think of it as my collaborator. It is something that I go back and forth with, like, hey, here are the things that I believe to be true. What are the next questions I should ask? It's about generating better conversations, generating more insights, and making me think differently about something because we all come to any given problem, whether it's, what's the right franchise fit or, should I be a franchisee, period. We come to it with different sets of biases, and that influences what keywords we type in, how we ask the Google to do our initial search, how we answer a questionnaire. But sometimes we can use I'll say unbiased. All systems and software are biased, everyone. You get that. I get that. I've said it before. But, unbiased as in it's not you. It's an alternative source of whether it is, spitballing things back and forth, ideating, or asking it to probe deeper to give you better questions to even ask yourself before going in and taking someone else's time.
Yes, absolutely. And for me, it's just another tool in the toolbox to help people. And especially on my podcast, I would put your name into ChatGPT and say, here's a few questions I have, but what questions would you ask Dr. Jill? And even if there's one that I absolutely love or the concept of one, I win. You win. We're going to have a better conversation. So you can't use it. You can use it to create an email cadence or DM responses in LinkedIn and all kinds of ideas. But the minute it doesn't sound human, there's a big problem with that. It has to have the right connection. Otherwise it obviously, like Teflon, it falls off.
Have you, Lance, played around with custom training your own agent in your brand tone, voice, past work?
I started to. I haven't completed it yet. I've had a few friends that have shared some things they've created. I have some friends that are far more advanced than me, and they've shared what they've done. It's pretty incredible what it's capable of. And I had somebody recently tell me, while ChatGPT is fabulous for a lot of things that you could do, Claude might be better for actual conversation. So it's amazing how much there really is. And then, as far as automation in my business, CRMs have been around for a while now, and the automations and the workflows today versus what they were when CRMs first came out are absolutely incredible. So things like Go High Level that I just switched to from a more canned CRM with less options. So I'm excited to really dive into that because, I'll give you an example in franchising that you'll love. And I think the audience will love as well. We're at our house in Las Vegas where we live. We're probably on our 7th pool cleaning company. I don't want to clean my own pool and service my own pool and check the chemicals. I know some people are very capable of that, but we have little pain in the neck dogs. So we ask anybody that's servicing our pool, let us know when you're coming. And oh, by the way, let us know, was the pool awful? Do we need to get the algae out? Is it annual cleaning, filter cleaning, whatever? We never get any pictures. We never get any report from anybody unless we ask. What do you think all the best franchises do? They have automations. The automation's going to say, hey, Lance, we'll be there within 30 minutes. Please put the dogs away, whatever. And it could even say that because it's going to store that information that we have dogs in case they trade out techs. And then after they're done, what do you think happens? The tech is putting everything in the tablet or the iPad, whatever it might be, in the technology, and it sends, and we get a report automatically emailed to us with pictures saying everything's great, blah, blah, blah. Hey, next month you're up for your annual filter cleaning or quarterly filter, whatever it might be. This is the difference where automation, I know any small business can instill or install automation and make their lives better. But it's the same thing with if you're calling an HVAC company because you have an AC problem, who generally gets the job? One of the first companies, if not the first company, that actually answers the phone and says, I'll have a tech there within the hour. And franchises are genius because they have all the automations to make sure, because speed kills deals, kills business. And so automation is amazing for that. And that's a lot of what I'm doing for my clientele these days, because rapport and trust is what I do in the very first call. I want to make sure I establish that rapport because I am a good guy and I'm doing this because I want to help people seamlessly transition from their W-2 job. Most of my clientele are first-time business owners. But it's amazing when people get into their first franchise. I have a couple that just bought their second franchise. Actually, it's probably the 4th couple recently that bought their second franchise. It's contagious. It's like joining a fraternity or a sorority because there's a culture that really feels good. You go to annual conventions, you're supporting each other. You talk about the rising tide raises all ships. You have people exiting franchises for $100 million, and the new franchisees are like, I got to talk to Dr. Jill to find out how she did that before she retires and goes on her yacht. I had a guy on my podcast the other day. He's like, I don't know what's going on. I have all these franchisees buying planes. And I was like, that's a great testimonial right there.
For everyone, we all have our proclivities. We all have our preferences. We all have very different life situations. But when it comes down to it, it's what is your goal kind of at the end? And what can you do to expedite that, right? And there's many different ways, but obviously pertinent to today's episode, franchising is part of that. And I love, Lance, just your examples with the pool automations. What's interesting, though, to me is how many companies are so just freaking poor at setting these up. And these are larger companies, too. And I tell people, when I'm speaking on AI, on automations, on customer experience, I often tell the story of what got me interested in automations and customer experience in the very first case. And it was back in 2011-12 with Safelite Auto Glass, because single, living alone, had to get my windshield repaired. They sent an email with the picture of the technician that would be visiting my home. Guys, this was like 13, 14 years ago. Not that complicated if you have your systems in place and your data ordered. And for me, the feeling that I had of safety, of comfort as a consumer really intrigued me to start looking more into it. And right now, with generative AI, with the low cost of tools, with CRMs having API, application programming interface, integrations, tools like Zapier that are out there, tiny businesses can have the same type of automations as massive companies. But if you don't want to put those in place, franchises already have it there for you.
Yes. And that's just one bonus because technology always changes. And there are franchise brands that I know, big ones, that build out this certain software to accomplish certain things. And as you said, API, they connect this to that. And 2 years later, they realize with their franchise advisory council made up of top franchise owners, I think we're still missing out. And then they switch to another technology. You have this brain trust of people. You're never by yourself and you always have a leg up on the competition. So it's not just in technology and automations. That's just one piece of the pie in business ownership.
Oh, it is for sure. So, Lance, one of the things I like to do as we wrap up this show, and I don't do it always every episode, but I am inspired on this one. So, are you cool if I give you some automation ideas?
Sure.
Awesome. I love it. So, one of the things that I love with assessments, and since we started out there, we're going to end it there too, because I think an assessment is such a useful tool for so many businesses in different ways, is that an assessment gives you an initial profile of someone, right? Or an additional pieces of data, initial impetuses. I don't know which one, guys. Anyway,
it might be impetum.
Yeah, I mean, who knows, right? No, I have not had my margarita yet, everyone. In any event, with this, we're getting this. The power isn't only in the assessment because you get that, it's automated, people get results. Now, the thing is, how do we minimize trust and the building of trust and rapport? So if someone has not, which is doubtful, but if someone has not seen your franchise roadshow, your Eyes on Franchising podcast, has not seen you in that way, or only sees you in that light and not in the I'm a one-on-one consultative person type, you can now automate those responses with videos of yourself that are very unique, that explain the results back to the person in shortened ways, and also set and calibrate expectations for a call. Even better, with what data you're collecting during that initial conversation, if you record those conversations, and this is for everybody, with permission, of course, from people, you can take that transcript and get it extracted into identifiable pieces of information that you automatically have assimilated with their profile in your CRM, your customer relationship management software. And now you have assessment data, you have other columns of data to pair in so that that next follow-up communication is so highly customized. And yes, your human brain will do this naturally, but now think, this person, for whatever reason, says, I am really interested, but 6 months down the line. Now you have something that you don't have to recall 6 months ago. You get that all automated in your system. And there was a reason for that 6-month delay. And likely that conversation also captured that data. Before you go to that call, now some CRMs are already doing this, but if yours isn't, definitely look into it. Before you do it, you can do a one-click, what's my AI summary of my history with this person before I jump on a call again? And if you've uploaded those transcripts and have sentiment analysis with listening analysis, you can really get a robust profile that will help. And I say that not only for what you're doing, Lance, but for anyone doing this, because there's no reason that you can't leverage all of these capabilities now. Even if you're just doing Zoom meetings, the AI transcripts and summaries that Zoom sends out automatically, if you have an enterprise account, maybe even if you have a lower account, I don't know. It's insane. And so not using it is actually you ignoring customer data right now.
I love it. I love the suggestions. Thank you.
No, it's thank you for letting me play in that space, because sometimes I get inspired with an idea and I just want to share it to everybody. But Lance, we've talked about this assessment. You've given some valuable insights into kind of the world of franchising, how to look at it from different perspectives. And what's funny is I had never thought about it as not necessarily an option for me. I've always thought about it as an option for me, but I haven't thought about it as more of knowing the breadth of things are available that really are more capital investment based and not sweat equity based, and how things can get up and running. So you and I are going to have a follow-up. But that being said, looking at this and seeing how many automations are in place, if people are curious about, it doesn't even have to be a franchise right now, guys, but if you're just curious about how you kind of lead and look at business and culture, do you recommend getting that assessment done?
Absolutely. It's great for anyone looking to get into business, to give them that introspection, so to speak. look inside themselves to how they really are thinking, because it leads with your mindset and it has everything to do with your life experiences and also your expectations of where you are at that time. So absolutely, absolutely jump in there, do the assessment. I'm happy to have a call with you regardless, even if you're not ready today. You might be ready 3 years from now. I have quite a few people that do that. I have people that reach out to me and do the assessment that have an idea for a business. I don't get paid on that, but I'm happy to help. This is what I do. I love people and I love changing lives.
And those conversations allow you to do it even better. So everyone, before I wrap up, I want to tell you one of the cool things that I have not seen in an assessment before on understanding business kind of profiles and productivities. And this was just really nerdy to me, so I thought it might be interesting to some of you. One of the things that it profiles in the assessment is kind of stage of growth, which is kind of an indicator of what type of business model might be good for you. And when I look at all of these things, I'm like, yeah, plug and play is not going to be good for me because I'm way too opinionated and stubborn to just take a system at face value without criticizing the heck out of it. I'm like, okay, yeah. And do I need an empire? That was another choice. Like, no, I don't need this long lasting legacy type thing. That's not what I'm in it for. But anyway, I won't spoil the thing with what my results were, but it was fascinating to me. I have never seen that. I've taken dozens of business assessments, but that part, Lance, in particular, that was very curious. So my statistical nerd mind wants to know how that data was analyzed and compiled, but I won't bore all of you with that.
Yeah, no, and this is quite scientific. A lot of people with advanced degrees, like you, that were focused on this, looking at success people have had in business ownership and in franchises. And it's easy to benchmark people's success when you have these super successful people in the world of franchising, going back and taking assessments like that to gauge what their results are. It's pretty interesting. And a lot of brands today are using something similar to predict, just like you took it, to predict the success in their particular brand of what this person might achieve with their brand. And if they don't hit a certain level, they might not be invited to the table. They don't just take a franchise fee from everybody. Some people seem to think that in franchising. Oh, you could just join any brand. No, you can't.
No. Well, Lance, I have enjoyed so much learning more about the franchising world and having you on the show today. I'm sure all the listeners feel the same. You guys, I encourage you, go take the assessment just because it's kind of cool. And if you want to follow up on it, you can even copy and paste some of your results, put it into ChatGPT and ask it to spit back some of the watchouts or what are some of the questions that I don't ask with this mindset, but probably need to ask. That was enlightening, guys. That was enlightening. And again, it came back with a lot of them, but one of those did kind of really ping me and I wrote it on a Post-it note. So you never know what you're going to get in this path of learning. So again, Lance, thank you so much. In the show notes, everybody will have the link to the assessment, Lance's LinkedIn, a link to his podcast, Eye on Franchising, which is awesome. So be sure to follow up. And of course, I will be back again next week for another episode of Humanize Automation. And for those of you listening, let's see, this will probably come out in June. It's not Cinco de Mayo now when you're listening, but I'm raising a margarita to you in absentia right now. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you again on the next episode.